In a desolate French village in 1944, a frail woman collapsed at the feet of a Gestapo patrol. They did not know that she was the infamous Lamba, the shadow operative who had systematically dismantled their intelligence network, leaving a trail of chaos and dead informants in her wake. In their custody, seemingly broken and defeated, she meticulously orchestrated the final act of a symphony she had long been composing vengeance. The air in the interrogation room was thick with the stench of stale cigar smoke and unwashed bodies, a suffocating perfume that clung to the damp stone walls of the cellar. Lena, her real name long buried under layers of aliases and forged documents, kept her gaze fixed on a crack in the floor, a jagged line that mirrored the fissures in her own soul. A man whose reputation for cruelty was whispered with fear throughout the occupied territories, paced before her, his polished boots clicking a rhythmic, menacing beat on the concrete. He saw only a captured peasant, her face smudged with dirt, her clothes torn, her body trembling with what he mistook for fear. He savored her apparent weakness, his words a venomous drip of condescension as he detailed the futility of her resistance, the inevitable triumph of the Reich, and the gruesome fate that awaited her. She let his arrogance wash over her, a shield she had perfected over years of living a double life. Every insult, every threat was a note in her silent composition, a calculated beat leading to the crescendo she had planned with chilling precision. While he gloated, her mind was a whirlwind of activity, cataloging the room's layout, the number of guards outside, the precise timing of their shift changes, and the subtle tremor in Richter's hand as he lit another cigarette, a sign of a man stretched thin, a predator whose confidence was a fragile veneer over gnawing paranoia. She had allowed herself to be caught, a deliberate sacrifice, a pawn offered up to draw the king into the open. This cellar was not her prison. It was her stage, and the final act was about to begin. Her days blurred into a monotonous cycle of staged submission and silent observation, a grim ballet performed for an audience of jackbooted thugs. She was moved from the cellar to the officers' quarters, tasked with menial chore-scrubbing floors, polishing boots, and serving meals, her presence becoming as commonplace and ignored as the furniture. They called her the Mouse, a fitting name for the quiet, scurrying creature she pretended to be. As she served Richter his morning coffee, her hands steady despite the fury simmering beneath her skin, she memorized the documents left carelessly on his desk, troop movement schedules, patrol routes, and lists of suspected collaborators. She overheard conversations laced with strategic details, snippets of intelligence that were like gold to the resistance. Each piece of information was carefully filed away in the recesses of her mind, a mental map of the enemy's entire operation growing more detailed with every passing hour. She endured their casual cruelty and vile remarks, her face a mask of weary resignation, but behind her vacant eyes a fire burned, fueled by the memory of her family, executed in the town square for harboring a downed Allied pilot. The humiliation she suffered was a currency she paid willingly, each degrading act a down payment on the debt of blood she intended to collect. They saw a slave, a broken spirit, but they were blind to the predator hiding in plain sight, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Her plan was a delicate web, and every interaction, every demeaning task, was another silken thread she spun, drawing them all closer to the center. The opportunity she had been waiting for arrived under the cover of a torrential downpour, a storm that mirrored the tempest in her soul. The compound was on high alert, not because of her, but because of an anticipated partisan attack on a nearby railway line, an attack she herself had orchestrated weeks prior through a coded message passed to a baker in the village. The base was a hive of frantic activity, with soldiers being dispatched and communications lines buzzing with panicked chatter. In the ensuing chaos, Richter and his senior officers were distracted, their attention focused outward, completely oblivious to the viper they harbored in their own nest. Lena, tasked with cleaning the communications room, saw her opening. The Gauge, a young, nervous corporal, more concerned with the thunder than his prisoner, was easily distracted by a spilled bucket of water. As he cursed and scrambled for a mop, Lena's hands moved with practiced speed. It took less than 10 seconds. A small, almost invisible device, fashioned from a watch mechanism, and a sliver of metal she had pilfered from the workshop, was placed inside the main transmitter. It was not a bomb designed for destruction, but something far more insidious, a frequency jammer that would broadcast a piercing, disorienting signal on a slight delay, sowing maximum confusion at the most critical moment. Her work! Then she resumed her mopping, her heart a steady drum against her ribs. She was no longer just a spy. She was a conductor, and the orchestra of chaos was about to play her symphony. As she left the room, she gave the young corporal a timid, apologetic smile, the very picture of harmlessness. He grunted in response, never once suspecting that the mouse had just set the trap that would devour them all. As darkness fully enveloped the storm-lashed compound, the first phase of her plan unfolded. The railway line exploded in a spectacular fireball, a signal flare visible for miles, just as she had intended. The base erupted into a new level of pandemonium. Richter, bellowing orders, directed all available manpower toward the sabotage site, leaving the headquarters dangerously understaffed. This was the moment. As the last truck rumbled out of the gate, Lena made her move. She slipped into Richter's now empty office. The keys she had molded from a piece of soap and wax, turning silently in the lock, working with a surgeon's focus. She retrieved a hidden canister of cyanide gas from a loose floorboard in the pantry, a contingency she had prepared long ago, rigged it to the ventilation system that served the officer's wing and the underground bunker. Next, she found the master ledger, the book containing the names of every Gestapo informant and collaborator in the region, the very document that had cost her family their lives. She tucked it securely inside her shirt. This was for the future of the resistance. Her final act in the office was one of personal retribution. She took Richter's prized iron cross from its velvet box, spat on it, and placed it in the center of a pile of his strategic maps, dousing the lot with petrol from a jerrycan she'd hidden in the cleaning closet. The stage was set. Her heart was a cold, hard stone in her chest, the grief and rage of the past years honed to a single, sharp point of purpose. With the compound's defenses thinned and its command structure in disarray, Lena descended into the bowels of the beast, the underground bunker where the most sensitive communications and reserve guards were stationed. Just as the delayed jammer she planted earlier shrieked to life, filling the airwaves with a deafening static that severed all communication with the outside world, she activated the ventilation system. A faint, almond-scented mist began to seep through the vents, silent and deadly. The guards, confused by the sudden radio silence and the distant explosions, barely noticed the change in the air until it was too late. Panic gave way to choked gasps, then the final, horrifying silence. Lena, holding a damp cloth over her mouth, moved through the corridors like a phantom, the ghosts of her fallen comrades at her side. She found Richter, who had returned from the railway to a scene of inexplicable chaos, choking in his own command center. He saw her then, truly saw her for the first time, not as the mouse, but as the angel of death. His eyes widened in disbelief and terror. His hand reaching for the pistol he could no longer lift, she stood over him, her expression unreadable, and watched as the life faded from the man who had taken everything from her. She felt nothing, not satisfaction, not joy, only a profound, chilling emptiness. The debt was paid. Her final act was to light a match. As the flames greedily consumed Richter's office above, she slipped out through a forgotten service tunnel. The ledger pressed against her skin, and the roar of the fire, a funeral pyre for her past. Emerging into the rain-soaked forest, she did not look back at the inferno that was once her prison. She was no longer Lena, no longer Lomber, but a nameless shadow melting back into the night, her personal war over, leaving behind only a story that would be whispered in hushed tones for years to come. A tale of a slave who brought an empire to its knees.